Every winter, 1 in 5 medieval peasants never saw spring, not because they moved away, because they died. In England's brutal Little Ice Age, people didn't just freeze, their bodies literally collapsed from the inside out while their minds still functioned, witnessing every moment of their slow demise. Before we start, if these stories help you fall asleep, hit subscribe so you don't miss any. I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Drop your location and time in the comments. I saw someone from Finland listening at 3 AM last week, which seems fitting for today's icy tale. Alright, tonight, it's medieval winter survival. But wait, are you comfortable? Seriously, take a second. Adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket. Where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. The wind howls outside your hut, finding every gap between wattle and daub. You're awake, you don't want to be. It's the coldest morning of the year in your English village, 1347. The thatched roof above you has a dusting of white, snow that filtered through during the night. Your breath turns to fog in front of your face as consciousness forces itself upon you. Your family's all here, piled together on the sleeping platform. 6 people squeezed onto a space barely big enough for 3. The youngest, your 4-year-old sister, is nestled in the middle, the warmest spot. Your father's already up, rekindling the fire that died overnight. Your mother and older brothers haven't moved, they're saving energy. Smart. Getting out of bed is the day's first battle. Your woolen blanket, coarse and itchy but mercifully warm, is the only barrier between you and the freezing air. The floor is just packed earth, now rock hard with frost. The moment your bare feet touch it, pain shoots up your legs. But you have no choice. The animals need feeding. The Frostwatch duty roster has your name on it. Nobody prepared you for this kind of cold. Not the old folks with their endless warnings, not the priest with his doom-laden sermons about winter penance. This cold doesn't just nip at your skin, it reaches straight into your bones, making them brittle as ice. "Thomas, check the pig," your father mutters, not turning from the pathetic fire he's nursing. His voice sounds different in winter, lower, quieter, conserving energy with every syllable. "Aye," you answer, using as few sounds as possible. You know the pig matters more than any of you right now. It's your family's walking food reserve, the difference between life and death by February. You shuffle toward the far corner of the one-room house where she lies, massive and grumbling, contributing her animal warmth to your family's desperate energy budget. The pig looks back at you with surprisingly intelligent eyes. She knows it's cold, too. Unlike your human pride, she doesn't pretend to be unbothered. She's breathing normal, you tell your father. You check her water. A thin layer of ice has formed overnight. You break it with your finger, wincing at the cold. Water's freezing again. Your father nods. No wasted words. In winter, everything is conservation. Stay with me here, because this is where medieval winter gets wild. Your family doesn't just wake up and start the day like we do. Winter was different. In your medieval body, winter means a partial shutdown, what we'd now call a kind of human hibernation. Your metabolism slows, your movements become deliberate, minimal. You feel a heaviness that's not quite sleepiness, but something deeper, more primal. Your body is telling you, conserve, survive, endure. Outside, the village is just stirring. Smoke rises from maybe half the chimneys. The rest can't afford to start their fires this early. Wood is precious. Each log has to last. Some families will go the entire day with just the heat from their bodies and their animals. You spot Willem, the village frost watcher for last night, making his final rounds. His job was vital. In the deadliest hours before dawn, he checked on the elderly and the sick, making sure no fire went out completely. A dead fire meant possible dead people by morning. "Thomas," he calls, his voice hoarse from hours in the cold. "Your turn for the day watch. 4 houses had their fires die in the night. I marked them with sticks by the door." "Anyone not wake up?" you ask. It's the question everyone fears. Willem hesitates. Old Emma didn't answer. "I got the door open, but her son chased me out. Said she was just sleeping deep." You both know what that likely means. Sleeping deep in winter is often just a gentler way of saying someone has died, but you nod anyway. What else can you do? Here's the thing about medieval winter that gets me. They didn't just worry about freezing to death. Starvation was just as deadly. The village's food stores were calculated precisely. Each family knew exactly how many days their stores would last. They counted grains, measured flour, rationed every turnip. I'm not talking rough estimates. They knew down to the day when they'd run out. But the medieval mind had this brilliant survival trick. They didn't think in terms of individual survival. The entire village operated as a single organism. You take a step toward the village centre, your feet crunching on frozen mud. Through the dim winter light, you see others emerging, all headed the same way. The bell rings once, signalling the day's first gathering, not by the church but by the village's central storage pit. Elder Harold, bent and grey but still commanding respect, stands by the sealed entrance. This isn't a democracy, but winter demands a different kind of governance. The usual lord's authority fades somewhat against nature's harsher rule. Frost came early this year, Harold announces, though everyone can see that. We'll need to check all stores today. Any rot, any pests, we deal with now. Blight in the grain store spreads faster than sin. A low murmur passes through the gathered villagers. You count heads. Some families aren't represented, either still conserving energy inside or, well, no one asks. Picture this, 30 people standing in the dim winter light, breath clouding, shoulders hunched against the cold. No one speaks loudly, no wasted energy, but there's something else in their posture, a solidarity, a shared understanding that the next 3 months will test every limit. Some of the faces around you won't see spring. Everyone knows it. No one says it. Your thoughts are interrupted by a commotion at the pond's edge. A shout goes up. Someone's pig has wandered onto the ice, breaking through into the frigid water below. In summer, this would be annoying. In winter, it's catastrophic. That pig represents weeks of meals, rendered fat for candles, bones for tools. Without hesitation, 4 men, including your father, rush toward the pond. They don't confer or plan. This has happened before. Each knows his role. Your father, being strongest, wades into the shallows, the ice cracking around his legs. The pain must be excruciating, but his face shows nothing. Another man hands him a rope, already looped into a crude harness. "Hold steady, pig," your father calls, as if the terrified animal might understand. "Just hold there." The pig thrashes, panicking, breaking more ice. Its eyes show white all around. In its terror, it could easily drag your father under too. You hold your breath. Your father is your family's cornerstone. Without him, your survival odds plummet. You're too young for Frostwatch or pig rescue, but not too young to understand stakes. This moment, right here, could determine whether your family lives or dies this winter. With a lunge that makes the gathered crowd gasp, your father gets the rope around the pig. The animal squeals, a sound so primal it raises the hair on your neck. The other men pull, their faces red with effort. For several heartbeats, nothing happens. Then, with a great heaving surge, the pig slides up onto firmer ice. One last pull brings it to solid ground, where it collapses, shivering violently. Your father staggers out of the water, his legs already turning an alarming shade of red. 2 villagers immediately flank him, half carrying him toward the nearest house. Not yours, it's too far. Old Matilda's cottage is closest. You follow, pushing through the small crowd. Damn, that's cold. Like medieval cold is a whole different animal than what we think of as cold today. Even in your warm bed right now, you can almost feel that bone-deep chill that never quite leaves, no matter how close you get to the fire. Inside Matilda's cottage, they've already stripped your father's frozen clothes off. His legs are mottled red and white, early frostbite. Matilda doesn't waste time with pleasantries. She barks orders at her daughter to fetch the warming stones from the fire. These stones, heated all night in the embers, are wrapped in rags and placed against your father's legs. "Lucky fool," Matilda mutters, not unkindly. "Another minute and you'd be losing toes by spring." Your father grimaces. "Pig's worth 10 toes. This gets a rare laugh from the room. Gallows humour is winter's most abundant crop. Oh, and speaking of crops, medieval winter wasn't a total agricultural shutdown like you might think. The rhythm just changed. While your father recovers, you join the other younger villagers in the frost-hardened fields. The ground is like iron, but there are still winter vegetables to tend. The hardy kales and cabbages that somehow survive the freeze. Working the winter fields is a strange business. You move slowly to avoid sweating. Paradoxically, sweat in winter is deadly. It soaks your clothes, then freezes, but you need to move enough to stay warm. It's a delicate balance that your body seems to understand instinctively. Thomas calls Agnes, a girl about your age. In summer, you hardly notice her. In winter, everyone becomes more visible somehow, more essential. Father says the rye field needs checking for rabbit holes. They're getting under the snow and eating the winter shoots. You nod and change direction, heading toward the dormant rye field. Agnes falls in step beside you. You don't speak much, again, conservation, but there's comfort in not being alone. The rye field is eerily beautiful in winter. The snow has created a perfect white blanket, interrupted only by the dark stalks of last season's stubble. But Agnes spots it first, a series of small holes and disturbed snow. There, she points, rabbits. In summer, rabbits are pests. In winter, they're dinner. You both know what to do. From your belt, you take a small net while Agnes circles around to the far side of the rabbit trails. This is a dance you've done before. With luck, you'll drive at least one rabbit into the net. Meat for the pot tonight. The medieval food chain was brutally short in winter. Any protein was precious. The village had slaughtered most of its livestock before winter set in, keeping only breeding stock and a few milk animals. The meat had been salted, smoked, preserved. But fresh meat, that was a luxury that appeared only when luck and skill combined. Agnes stamps her foot suddenly, and you see a flash of movement, grey-brown against white. You swing the net low, feeling the satisfying weight of a catch. A small rabbit, thin but still meat, thrashes in the mesh. "Good throw," Agnes says, her eyes brightening. Even this small victory feels enormous in winter's economy. You dispatch the rabbit quickly, mercifully. There's no room for cruelty and survival. Agnes takes it, already reaching for the small knife at her belt to begin dressing it. Nothing will be wasted. Meat, fur, bones, all have uses. "Your father showed courage at the pond," she says, her hands working efficiently. "The pig belonged to Widow Martha. She'd have starved without it." You hadn't known that detail. Your father risked frostbite, maybe worse, for someone else's pig. That's the village winter mind. Individual survival bound up completely with collective survival. By the time you return to the village centre, the day's light is already waning. Winter days are cruelly short. The bell rings again, this time calling everyone to the communal cooking area. Not every family cooks daily in winter. Fuel is conserved by cooking in shifts, meals shared among groups of households. Today, your family's cooking group includes 5 households. 20 people gathered around one large fire. Each family contributes something to the pot. Your rabbit is met with approving nods. Someone else brings turnips, another dried beans. Old Matilda, always prepared, adds precious dried herbs that will make the stew not just filling but flavourful. Your father has joined the circle, moving stiffly but no longer in danger. He gives you a nod of acknowledgement when he sees the rabbit, high praise in his economy of expression. "Good news from the Frostwatch," announces Elder Harold as the stew bubbles. "Only one home found cold this morning." The unspoken question hangs in the air. "Who?" "Emma didn't make it through the night," he continues, his voice matter of fact. "Her son kept her warm as she passed. Peaceful," he says. A moment of silence follows. Not shock, no one is shocked by winter death, but recognition. Emma was old, her passing not unexpected. Still, each death diminishes the village, removes skills, knowledge, another pair of hands. "We'll add her food stores to the common reserve," Harold adds. This is tradition. The dead feed the living through winter, and her son will move in with his brother's family. This is how it works. The village contracts, consolidates, conserves. Houses left empty in winter quickly deteriorate. Better to combine households, share warmth and resources. As darkness falls completely, the village transforms. Medieval nights were darker than anything you can imagine. No streetlights, no ambient glow from distant cities. Just absolute, complete darkness, broken only by the stars and the occasional lantern. But tonight, something special happens. The first winter feast. Not a celebration of plenty, that would be foolish so early in the season, but a careful, measured acknowledgement that the village has survived the first frost, the first test of winter. Extra candles are lit. The stew pot is supplemented with bread baked specially for the occasion. A small cask of ale is tapped. In this moment of calculated indulgence, faces relax slightly. Children are allowed to play more energetically. The burden of constant conservation eases, just for an evening. Let me tell you something wild about medieval winter feasts. They were precisely calibrated psychological tools. The village elders spaced these moments of relative abundance throughout winter at key intervals, just when despair might set in, just when the darkness and cold might break spirits. They understood something profound about human resilience, that it needs moments of hope, carefully rationed, just like physical resources. As the feast winds down, people begin to drift back to their homes in small groups carrying lanterns. Nobody travels alone at night in winter. A fall, an injury, exposure, death comes too easily in the darkness. Your family returns to find your home colder than when you left. The fire must be rebuilt, the animals tended one more time. But there's a change in the air, a sense of purpose, of shared burden. Your mother hums softly as she banks the fire, a rare sound in winter. Everyone prepares for bed earlier than in summer. Conservation again. Sleeping preserves energy, requires no fuel beyond body heat. The family arranges itself on the sleeping platform in the same configuration as before, youngest in the middle, oldest at the edges. Your father, still recovering, is given a more protected position tonight. As darkness settles over the village, a strange peace descends. This is the reality of medieval winter, a continuous negotiation with death, a careful rationing of every resource from food to energy to hope itself. Yet humans endured, year after year, generation after generation. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, the frost watch rotation, food inventories, repairs to winter-damaged structures. But for now, in this moment between waking and sleeping, there's just the sound of your family's breathing, the occasional pop from the fire, and the distant howl of the wind. A wind that cannot reach you here, in this fragile pocket of warmth you've created together. Your eyelids grow heavy. Unlike your distant medieval ancestors, you don't have to wonder if you'll wake again, if the fire will last, if the food will stretch until spring. Your warm bed holds you safely, centuries away from their desperate calculations and communal survival. And as you drift towards sleep, remember, they made it through, against impossible odds, with nothing but ingenuity, community, and stubborn endurance. They survived winter after winter. Their blood runs in our veins. Their resilience is our inheritance. The first sleep approaches. The village settles. Winter has only just begun. The watch bell wakes you, not fully, just enough to register its distant toll. Your eyes open to darkness so complete it feels solid. For a moment, panic flutters in your chest. Then you remember, this is just first sleep ending. Your family stirs around you. This midnight waking isn't an emergency. It's normal. Medieval people didn't sleep straight through the night like we do. Their winter rest came in two distinct chunks. First sleep from dusk until midnight, then second sleep from roughly 2 a.m. until dawn. Between them came the watch, a period of quiet wakefulness that served essential purposes. "Thomas," your father whispers, his voice startling in the darkness. "Check the fire." You slide from beneath the woolen covers, the cold air shocking against your skin. The packed earth floor has somehow gotten colder since evening. You make your way to the hearth by memory and touch, feeling along the wall, careful not to disturb the chickens roosting in their corner. The fire has burned low during first sleep as intended. Complete extinction would be dangerous, but a roaring blaze would waste precious fuel. You add a single piece of wood from the stack, just enough to build it back to viable heat. Every log is counted, its consumption carefully planned across the winter months. Your mother rises now, moving silently to the wooden chest where food is stored. This midnight hour is for essential tasks that keep the household functioning. She takes out a clay pot of oats, soaking in water, tomorrow's breakfast already being prepared. Nothing can be left to morning's rush. You know what happens in other homes during this watch between sleeps. Some households use this time for prayer, others for quiet talk. Couples might choose this private darkness for intimacy. Craftsmen often work on detailed tasks, their fingers moving by touch and memory rather than sight. The stillness and dark create a different kind of concentration. Wait, let me paint this scene properly. Picture yourself in this one-room house. The fire casts just enough light to turn absolute darkness into shifting shadows. The air smells of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and the earthy dampness of the thatch above. Your breath clouds visibly. Outside, the darkness is absolute except for the stars. No light pollution, no distant glow of cities, just the profound primeval dark that humans evolved with for thousands of years before electricity banished it. "Bring the wool," your mother murmurs to your sister, who has also risen. What's wild is that this wakeful period wasn't considered an inconvenience. It was essential time, productive hours carved from the night. While modern folks might panic at insomnia, medieval people expected and used this midnight wakefulness. Your sister fetches the basket of carded wool. Your mother settles by the fire's dim glow, her spindle finding its rhythm, transforming fluffy tufts into thread by touch more than sight. This thread will become cloth, which will become clothing. The difference between freezing and surviving. "Snow's coming," your father says, returning from a brief step outside to relieve himself. Sky has that feeling. You all understand what this means. Snow changes everything in a medieval winter. Paths become treacherous, work grows harder, the village becomes more isolated. But snow also means insulation for the house, protection for dormant crops, and if you're lucky, rabbit tracks to follow for hunting. "Should we prepare the snow shovel?" you ask. Your father considers this. Tools in medieval winter aren't just casually grabbed when needed. Each represents precious calories spent in use. At first light, he decides, not worth the effort in darkness. The household settles into quiet industry. This is nothing like our modern midnight restlessness with screens and refrigerator raids. This is purposeful, conserving both materials and movements. Your brother, 2 years younger than you, gestures for your attention. He's been working on something in the corner, a small carving of a bird taking shape under his knife. Not a frivolous craft, but a gift with purpose. The village midwife's daughter is expecting a child, and such tokens are believed to ease difficult births. Community survival means everyone contributes skills. I bet you're wondering about staying warm through all this, because honestly, the clothing situation was kind of brilliant. Your medieval body is dressed in layers even while sleeping. Next to your skin is a simple linen shirt, not for warmth but to protect outer garments from body oils and to be washed more frequently than the precious wool. Over this, you wear a woolen tunic, the true workhorse of medieval warmth. This isn't the rough, itchy wool we might imagine. Generations of selective breeding produced sheep with remarkably soft fibres and medieval processing techniques. Beating, soaking, treating with urine, yes, really created fabrics with superb insulating properties. Most remarkable, wool keeps its insulating properties even when wet. You could walk through freezing rain or fall into snow, and though uncomfortable, your woolen garments would still protect you from hypothermia. Try that with cotton and you'd be dead by nightfall. Speaking of clothing, your father makes a small gesture and you reach for his boots by the door. The leather has stiffened in the cold, and your job is to work it with your hands, restoring flexibility before morning. Frozen boots mean frozen feet, and frozen feet mean death or amputation. Tell the one about the frost giant, your sister whispers to your mother. Even in this functional midnight hour, there's room for stories, especially stories that explain the terrifying cold in ways that make it seem conquerable. Your mother's hands never stop spinning as she speaks. Long before the Christ came to our shores, when the old gods still walked among us, there lived a frost giant in the northern mountains. The story unfolds in hushed tones, a tale of winter personified as a massive, ice-hearted creature whose breath froze lakes and whose footsteps cracked the earth. The hero, a clever shepherd, defeats the giant not with strength but with patience, tricking him into staying until spring's arrival drives him back to his mountain. It's not just entertainment. These stories contain survival wisdom passed through generations. The hero's techniques for staying warm, finding food, and outlasting winter's worst are all practical knowledge wrapped in mythology. Your sister listens, wide-eyed, despite her 13 years. You've heard the story dozens of times, but still find comfort in its familiar rhythm. The cold feels less personal, less malevolent, when framed as a challenge already overcome by your ancestors. Outside, the wind shifts. Even inside, you feel the change, a subtle drop in temperature that raises the hair on your arms. Your father notices too, his head lifting like a hound scenting danger. It's starting, he says simply. Medieval weather prediction wasn't mystical nonsense. It was sophisticated pattern recognition built on generations of observation. Your father can feel an approaching storm in his joints, sense pressure changes that modern people have forgotten how to notice. You move to the small window, just a wooden shutter over a gap in the wall, no glass, and crack it open an inch. The blast of cold makes you gasp, but you need to see. Fat snowflakes swirl in the darkness, already accumulating. This isn't a gentle dusting. This is the kind of storm that reshapes village life. Close it, your mother says sharply. No heat can be wasted. You secure the shutter, packing the edges with rags to block drafts. Every crack, every seam in a medieval home is a potential enemy, leaking precious warmth into the voracious night. The household falls silent, listening to the rising wind. You can actually hear the sound changing as snow builds up against the walls, a muffling effect that's both comforting and isolating. Your brother breaks the silence. Will John's family be all right? He means your cousin's family, who live in a smaller, newer house at the village edge. Their walls are thinner, their stores smaller. Winter hierarchies are determined not just by the Lord's favour, but by house quality and food reserves. They know to come here if it gets too cold, your father answers. Extended families clustered together during the worst weather, consolidating resources and body heat. Some smaller houses might be abandoned entirely during deep winter, their occupants moving in with relatives. This is what fascinates me about medieval winter, the absolute practicality. No room for pride or privacy when survival is at stake. And speaking of practicality, the watch hour is ending. You can feel it in the household's rhythm, tasks concluding, bodies preparing for second sleep. This next period of rest will last until dawn, longer than first sleep and often deeper. Your mother banks the fire precisely, not extinguished, but reduced to extend the fuel supply. The spinning is put away. Your father checks the animals one last time, the pig, the chickens, even the family cat that earns its keep by hunting mice that would otherwise raid food stores. The midnight meal is simple, a small piece of hard cheese and a sip of ale for each family member, not for pleasure, but for sustenance through the night. The nutrients are carefully calculated to support body heat generation without taxing digestion. Everyone returns to the sleeping platform, arranging bodies in the same heat-conserving configuration, but there's a difference now. You place warm stones, heated by the fire and wrapped in rags, at strategic points among the bedding. These will give off heat for hours. A medieval hot water bottle system. Sleep comes quickly this time, your body surrendering to the efficient rhythm established over thousands of years of human adaptation to winter darkness. Dawn arrives grey and muffled. The storm has passed, leaving behind a transformed world. You wake to your father already up, stoking the fire to proper cooking heat. Today will demand more calories, more warmth. Snow brings heavy work. Your first task after a breakfast of oat porridge enriched with a precious dried apple is to dig out, not just your doorway, but a path to the animal shelter, the water source, and eventually connections to neighbours. Medieval snow removal wasn't about convenience, it was about survival access. The wooden snow shovel, carved from a single piece of hardwood and carefully stored from year to year, feels heavy in your hands. Each scoop represents calories spent, warmth lost through exertion. You have to work steadily, but not sweat. Again, that paradoxical winter wisdom. Here's something you might not realize. Medieval snow clearing followed specific patterns developed over centuries. Main paths first, connecting critical resources, then household access. Only after essential connections were restored would anyone bother with comfort or convenience. The village emerges from shelter gradually, each household performing the same calculations of necessity. You see your neighbours fighting the same battle against isolation, their breath clouding as they dig channels through snow that reaches, in some drifts, above your waist. Thomas. The call comes from down the path. Agnes, struggling with her family's clearing. Her father is one of the village's 2 blacksmiths, essential for tool repair but getting too old for heavy labour. Without hesitation, you head toward her. This isn't charity. Working together, you clear a path between your households in half the time. Agnes doesn't waste breath on thanks. That's not how this works. Instead, she simply says, "Father's made new nail shoes for walking on ice. He has a pair for your father." These nail shoes, leather straps fitted with iron spikes that could be tied over regular footwear, were medieval crampons preventing deadly falls on ice. Such a gift represents precious iron and skilled labour, a significant contribution to your family's winter survival. By midday, the essential paths are cleared. The village has re-established its lifelines. Now attention turns to the snowmelt, which must be channeled away from houses to prevent damaging thaws and refreezing. Medieval drainage was sophisticated, with carefully graded channels directing water away from structures and food storage. The snow has brought an unexpected blessing, clear tracks showing where game has moved during the night. You and several other young villagers are assigned to follow these trails, carrying snares and simple spears. Fresh meat in deep winter is worth the effort of trudging through snow. Your small hunting party follows rabbit tracks leading toward the forest edge. Walking in snow requires a specific technique, rolling steps that conserve energy and prevent overheating. You've been doing this since childhood, your body automatically finding the most efficient movement. "Look there," whispers Watt, the tanner's son, pointing to a distinctive pattern of prints. "Fox." A predator has been tracking the same rabbits. You'll have competition, but fox tracks can lead to fox dens, and fox fur is valuable, warmer than rabbit, perfect for lining gloves or caps. The hunting party splits naturally, 2 following the rabbit trail, you and Watt tracking the fox. This division of labour is automatic, requiring no discussion. Medieval winter work is choreographed by necessity and experience. God, the cold. Let's talk about that for a second. Medieval cold wasn't just about temperature. Without central heating creating even warmth, they experienced cold in ways we've forgotten. Freezing fog that seemed to penetrate clothes, wind that found every seam, snow that didn't just fall but drove horizontally, stinging exposed skin. And you're feeling all of it as you track the fox deeper into the trees. Your face, the only exposed part of your body, burns with cold. Your fingers, despite woolen mittens, grow clumsy. But you press on because success means better odds for everyone. The fox tracks lead to a fallen tree, its upturned roots creating a natural shelter. You signal Watt to circle around while you approach from the front. This coordination comes from years of working together, another survival advantage of stable village communities. Suddenly freezes, then drops to a crouch. You do the same instantly, trusting his instincts. There, a flash of red among the roots. The fox hasn't seen you yet. What happens next would shock modern sensibilities. With practiced efficiency, you set up a simple trap while Watt prepares to drive the animal toward it. This isn't sport, it's necessary protein and fur for the village's survival. Every movement is calculated, respect for the animal's life, balanced against human need. The fox bolts, but not toward your trap. It disappears into deeper forest, leaving you both standing in the snow, breathing hard. Too clever, Watt says, grinning despite the failure. Like my wife. This gets a rare laugh. Humor in medieval winter comes in brief flashes, often self-deprecating. The comparison of a fox to his recently married bride contains layers of affection and frustration only possible in a community where everyone knows everyone intimately. You turn back toward the village, the short winter day already fading. Empty-handed but not defeated. Tomorrow will bring another chance. The fox's territory is now known, its patterns observed. Medieval hunting was often a multi-day process of learning and adaptation. As you approach the village, something seems wrong. People are gathered in the center, their posture conveying urgency. You and Watt break into a careful run, fast enough to hurry, controlled enough to avoid dangerous falls. "What's happened?" Watt calls as you near the crowd. Elder Harold turns, his face grave. Martin's family hasn't cleared their path. No smoke from their chimney since dawn. Your stomach tightens. Martin's household includes his wife and 3 small children. They've been struggling since autumn when Martin injured his back during harvest. Their winter preparations were already inadequate. "Who's checking?" you ask, already knowing you'll volunteer. "Willem and Thomas the Elder went," Harold answers. "They should have been back." He's interrupted by shouts from the path leading to Martin's cottage. Willem appears, supporting a small bundle wrapped in blankets. One of the children. Behind him, Thomas the Elder carries another child, while Martin himself staggers along, carrying his youngest and practically dragging his wife. The village mobilizes instantly. The family is hurried to the communal hall, the only building large enough to hold emergency gatherings. Inside, the fire is built up higher than normal conservation would allow. This is crisis response, where normal rationing is temporarily suspended to save lives. Martin's family shows signs of severe cold exposure. The children's fingers are white at the tips, early frostbite. His wife seems confused, her speech slurred, a dangerous sign of advancing hypothermia. Martin himself can barely explain what happened. "Fire went out," he manages. "During night, didn't wake until too late." A deadly scenario in medieval winter. Without constant tending, fires died. Without fire, the bitter cold crept in. Without intervention, people died, quietly, sometimes without waking. The village healer, Agnes's grandmother Ida, takes charge. The children's hands and feet are submerged not in hot water that would cause excruciating pain and tissue damage, but in cool water slowly warmed. Medieval medicine understood frostbite treatment with surprising sophistication. For Martin's wife, the treatment is different. Gradual warming with heated blankets, careful monitoring of her mental state. You watch as Ida administers a tincture of herbs, explaining to her apprentice each step and its purpose. This knowledge, passed through generations, represents centuries of accumulated winter survival wisdom. The crisis brings the community's winter contingency plan into action. Martin's family can't return to their home. The structure has grown too cold, would take too much precious fuel to reheat. Instead, they'll be distributed among households with space. The children to a family with grown offspring, Martin and his wife to his brother's home. Their house will be closed up until spring, a carefully calculated sacrifice. The stored food will be recovered and shared, the structure preserved as well as possible against winter's damage. Every resource is accounted for, reallocated to maximize group survival. As darkness falls again, the village settles into its rhythm, with 5 more people sheltered in different homes. This reshuffling is part of winter's expectation. Family boundaries grow more permeable as survival demands cooperation. Your household receives no one this time, but your father increases the evening's wood rations slightly anyway. "Cold's getting deeper," he explains. "Need to maintain core warmth." The fire burns a little brighter as your family prepares for first sleep once more. The pattern continues, as it has for generations, as it will until spring finally breaks winter's grip. Each day a calibrated exercise in conservation and cooperation. Each night divided between practical wakefulness and efficient rest. Outside, the snow reflects starlight, creating a landscape both beautiful and deadly. The medieval winter continues its siege against human survival, but inside, warmth persists. Not just physical heat, but the resilience of community, of knowledge passed through generations, of humans adapting to challenge with remarkable ingenuity. As your eyes grow heavy, your body settling into first sleep's familiar pattern, you're briefly aware of your modern self, centuries removed from these desperate calculations. Your heated home, your full refrigerator, your insulated clothing, all luxuries beyond medieval imagining. Yet something in you recognizes this ancient rhythm of winter survival. Something remembers how to navigate darkness, conserve resources, rely on community. These patterns shaped our ancestors, and though dormant, they remain within us, waiting, perhaps, for times when we might need them again. The watch bell will ring again at midnight, but for now, rest. First, sleep begins. A week has passed since the snowstorm. Your village has settled into what the elders call deep winter mind, that strange collective state where time slows and the community turns inward. The days blend together, marked not by dates but by tasks, meals, and the endless battle against the cold. Today is Church Day, not Sunday. You've lost track of those formal divisions, but one of the winter holy days that punctuate the season. The bell rings differently, somehow more insistent despite the muffling snow. Your family moves slowly, deliberately. Winter church attendance isn't optional. Beyond religious obligation, it serves crucial community functions: information sharing, social bonding, and the comfort of ritual against winter's chaos. Wear your second-best tunic, your mother instructs, setting out the garment. Clothing choices in medieval winter weren't about fashion, but careful calculation of status display balanced against practical warmth. Church demanded respect, shown through appearance, yet the bitter cold required protection. The walk to the village church takes 3 times longer than in summer. Packed snow paths have turned icy, requiring careful steps. Your father carries a walking staff, not for support, but to test ice thickness. One bad fall could mean a broken limb, and in winter, that often meant death. Other families emerge from their homes, similarly bundled and moving with the same deliberate care. Greetings are brief, practical, paths slick by the old oak, north winds picking up, information that might save lives, not social pleasantries. The church stands at the village centre, its stone walls radiating cold. Unlike your wattle and daub home, the stone structure holds no heat without constant fire, and the church is never truly warm. The community's precious firewood is allocated sparingly even for God's house. Inside, breath clouds form above the gathered villagers. The priest, Father Edwin, wears heavy robes layered over woolens, his hands covered except when handling sacred objects. Even piety bows to winter's demands. In the darkest season, Father Edwin begins, his voice carrying in the stone space, we are reminded of Christ's light. The winter sermon is familiar, connecting the physical darkness and cold with spiritual themes of endurance and faith, but woven through the religious message are practical instructions disguised as moral guidance. As our Lord shared loaves with the multitude, so must we share our winter stores with the hungry. This isn't just scripture, it's reinforcement of community survival strategy. The priest's words carry the weight of both divine and practical authority. Medieval winter survival depended on this seamless blend of faith and function. Halfway through the service, snow begins falling again. You can hear it hissing against the small, high windows. The congregation shifts uneasily. New snow means new work, new danger. What's wild is how the same snow that threatens your survival also protects you. Medieval people understood this paradox intimately. Snow insulated their homes, preserved their food stores, protected dormant crops from killing frosts. The very force that isolated the village also sheltered it. Your mind wanders during the Latin portions of the Mass, words you don't understand but whose rhythms are comforting in their familiarity. You scan the congregation, noting absences. The Millers aren't present, nor old Gilbert's household. Illness, most likely. Winter sickness travels quickly through close-quartered families. After the final blessing, no one rushes to leave. The church has warmed slightly from the press of bodies, and this communal heat is valuable. Father Edwin understands this, extending the post-service announcements. The Lord's steward will visit tomorrow for winter accounting, informs the congregation. All households must report their remaining stores. A worried murmur passes through the gathering. Winter accounting is how the manor tract's village resources ensures tax obligations will be met come spring, but it serves another purpose, identifying households at risk of starvation before crisis strikes. The Lord has permitted the forest deadfall to be gathered for the next 3 days, Father Edwin continues, which brings visible relief. Access to the Lord's forest for firewood was tightly controlled. Even fallen branches considered his property. This temporary permission is life-saving grace for households running short on fuel. Church dismissed, the village breaks into clusters of conversation. This is no accident. These post-service gatherings are where essential winter information circulates. Which households have surplus, which are struggling, where illness has taken hold, who needs help with repairs after the storm. You stay close to your father as he speaks with Watt's father about redistributing Martin's family. Your household might take the youngest boy after all. The current arrangement isn't working. Too many small children in one home, resources stretched too thin. We have space, your father says simply. Not generosity, but practicality. Your house stays warmer than most. Your food stores are holding steady. Taking one small child balances the village's survival equation. The new snow is falling faster now. Families begin the careful journey home, walking in clusters for safety. The oldest villagers are supported by the strongest. Another winter survival strategy. No one moves through winter alone. Back home, your mother immediately sets to rearranging sleeping space to accommodate Martin's youngest son. The sleeping platform will be crowded, but more bodies mean more shared warmth. Medieval winter mathematics is ruthlessly efficient. The afternoon brings indoor work, the tasks saved for winter's enforced confinement. Your father repairs tools at the central table. Your brothers split rushes for fresh floor covering. Your sister and mother join neighbours who've brought their spinning and weaving work to share your fire. This scene, women gathered around the hearth, spinning wool into thread while sharing both labour and company, is one of winter's few comforts. The work is necessary, not social, but the boundary blurs as hands move and voices rise and fall in familiar patterns. Hold up, let me paint this picture properly. Imagine your one-room house, the central fire casting long shadows. 5 women seated on low stools, their distaffs loaded with carded wool, spindles turning with hypnotic rhythm. Their fingers never stop moving as they talk. A continuous productivity that seems almost unconscious. The conversation flows between practical matters and deeper community knowledge. Recipes for winter medicines, suggestions for stretching dwindling flower supplies, which plants might be found even under snow for fresh nutrition, how to treat chilblains and frostbite, when midwife knowledge might save a life without disturbing the household's precious sleep. My grandmother swore by moss poultice for chest congestions, offers Agnes's mother, her spindle whirling, gathered in summer, dried properly, then steeped in hot water with thyme. Better with honey, your mother counters, though precious to use it that way. This casual conversation is actually a sophisticated medical knowledge exchange. Medieval women's winter work included being keepers of healing traditions vital for surviving seasonal illness. Thomas, calls your mother, fetch more water for the pot. You take the wooden bucket and head outside. The snow has stopped, leaving a fresh white blanket over everything. The world feels muffled, insulated. Your footprints from this morning have already disappeared under new accumulation. At the village well, you find Agnes breaking ice from the bucket chain. This critical water source requires constant maintenance in freezing weather. Without access to clean water, the village would quickly succumb to thirst, or worse, illness from drinking snow contaminated by livestock and human waste. Father Edwin says we might have visitors, Agnes says as you approach, from the next village over. This is significant news. Winter travel between villages was rare, undertaken only for urgent reasons. Neighbouring communities maintained careful isolation during winter months to prevent disease spread and conserve resources. What do they want, you ask, helping her clear the last ice from the chain. Agnes shrugs. Something about the spring planting negotiations. The steward demanded they come. Politics doesn't stop for winter, you realise. The delicate balance of power between peasant villages, local lords and the distant king continues its dance regardless of season. Spring feels impossibly far away, yet decisions made now will determine survival then. You fill your bucket and hers. The water so cold it seems to burn your exposed skin. As you walk back together, Agnes points toward the manor house visible on the hill beyond the village. Smoke from all 3 chimneys today, she observes. They must be preparing for the steward's stay. The manor represents both protection and burden to your village. The lord's power ensures some security, his storehouse a last resort in dire famine, but his demands, for labour, for crops, for loyalty, shape every aspect of village life. Winter doesn't suspend this relationship, it merely transforms it. As evening approaches, you help your father prepare for Martin's son's arrival. A small pallet is arranged near the warmest corner. Extra blankets, precious resources, are brought from storage. Your own portion of dinner will shrink slightly to accommodate another mouth, a calculation made without complaint. The boy arrives just before dusk, brought by his exhausted father. He's small for his age, 4 or perhaps 5, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. Martin looks worse than his son, the strain of failing to protect his family etched deeply in his face. "He's a good lad," Martin says, his voice breaking slightly. "Doesn't eat much." "All children eat," your father responds, not unkindly. "As they should." This simple exchange contains volumes. Martin's shame at needing help, your father's firm rejection of that shame, the village's unspoken contract that children, above all, must be protected through winter's worst. Martin leaves quickly, unable to bear prolonged goodbyes. The boy, Edric is his name, stands frozen until your mother gently guides him to the fire. "You'll sleep there." She shows him the pallet. "Between the wall and Thomas. Warmest spot in the house." Edric nods silently. He's old enough to understand what's happening, young enough to be terrified by it. Children in medieval winter learned early that survival was fragile, community essential. The evening meal is pottage again, that ubiquitous medieval staple of vegetables and grain cooked into thick stew. Tonight it contains precious salt pork, flavouring the otherwise plain dish. The boy eats cautiously at first, then with increasing hunger when no one stops him. You wonder, watching him, how close Martin's family had come to true starvation. How many meals had been skipped to make dwindling supplies last? How cold had their house grown before they were found? These questions remain unasked. Medieval winter privacy meant not probing too deeply into others' hardships. After eating, the household settles into evening tasks. Your father teaches Edric simple knot tying, useful skill and distraction combined. The boy's small fingers struggle at first, then begin to master the movements. His face shows the first hint of relaxation since arriving. Night falls early, as it always does in winter. The fire is banked for first sleep, the family arranging themselves in the now familiar pattern, adjusted to include Edric's small form. The boy clings to the edge of your tunic as he falls asleep, anchoring himself in this new, strange situation. First sleep comes quickly for everyone, the day's exertions demanding recovery. The church bell will wake you for the watch later, but for now, there's just the sound of breathing, the occasional pop from the fire, and winter's howl kept at bay by community's careful planning. The midnight bell wakes you as always. First sleep ends, the watch begins. Edric stirs, confused by this strange pattern, but your mother soothes him back to sleep. Children aren't expected to maintain adult sleep divisions. Their growing bodies need continuous rest. During this watch, your father speaks quietly with your oldest brother about tomorrow's forest gathering. The Lord's permission to collect deadfall is too valuable to waste. They plan carefully. Which tools to bring, which forest sections to target, how much can be carried back in one journey. We'll need Thomas too, your father decides, nodding toward you. 3 can carry more than 2. This inclusion warms you more than the fire. Winter work assignments were a recognition of capability, of growing status within the household. At 15, you're increasingly essential to family survival. The watch passes in quiet productivity. Your mother mends Edric's tooth and tunic, reinforcing worn areas with scraps saved specifically for winter repairs. Nothing is wasted, nothing overlooked. Medieval winter survival depends on this constant attention to detail. Something people get wrong about medieval communities. They weren't all harmony and cooperation. Winter pressures revealed and exacerbated tensions. Resources weren't shared with perfect equality. Status mattered. Family connections mattered. Skill mattered. The survival calculation was communal but not uniformly democratic. Second sleep comes, deeper than the first. Your dreams are vivid with summer images, green fields, warm sun, abundant food. Medieval winter dreams often turned toward warmth and plenty, the mind's escape from cold reality. Dawn breaks grey again, the familiar winter half-light that never brightens to true day. Your household rises to the day's central task, gathering wood from the temporarily opened forest. This opportunity cannot be squandered. Breakfast is purposely substantial. Oat porridge with precious honey, small beer instead of water, calories needed for the hard work ahead. Edric watches wide-eyed at this relative abundance, making you wonder again how dire his family's situation had become. The forest expedition forms at the village edge, nearly every able-bodied adult and older child carrying ropes, axes, saws. This isn't a competition, but a coordinated harvest. The village woodward, an appointed expert on forest resources, directs different groups to different areas to maximize efficiency. Your family is assigned to the North Forest edge, where recent winds have reportedly downed several branches. The snow is deeper here, unpacked by regular travel, making progress slow and exhausting, but the reward justifies the effort. Wood means life in winter. The forest in winter is eerily beautiful. Snow hangs heavy on pine boughs, deciduous trees stand skeletal against white, animal tracks crisscross the otherwise unmarked snow. Medieval people weren't immune to this beauty despite their constant survival calculations. They understood their place within nature's cycles, found meaning in seasonal transitions. Your father spots it first, a large oak limb, recently fallen, half buried in snow. Perfect windfall, enough wood to last your household several precious days. The three of you set to work immediately, your father sawing while you and your brother clear snow and prepare to transport sections back to the village. The labour is intense but purposeful. Sweat forms under your layers despite the cold. Dangerous if allowed to soak your clothing. You work with measured pace, taking brief rests to prevent overheating. This body knowledge, how to work in extreme cold, was passed through generations, refined by experience. By midday, your family has secured enough wood to significantly extend your fuel supply. The return journey is grueling, dragging heavy loads through deep snow, but the satisfaction of successful harvest outweighs the discomfort. Back in the village, you find unusual activity. The steward has arrived early, his small retinue creating disruption in the carefully balanced winter routine. The manor's guards stand uncomfortably in the snow, while the steward himself conducts his business from the relative warmth of the church. Your father directs you to store the wood properly while he attends the mandatory accounting. This record-keeping might seem strange in a largely illiterate society, but medieval administration was surprisingly thorough. Every household's resources were tracked, obligations calculated based on holdings and capability. From your wood-stacking position, you watch villagers emerge from the church after their accounting. Some look relieved, others worried. The steward's assessment carries serious consequences. Households judged too short on resources might be forced to combine, their independence suspended until spring. When your father returns, his expression is neutral, neither relieved nor concerned. "We're marked sufficient," he tells your mother, but with obligation to share if general shortage develops. This is fair assessment. Your household's careful management has left you better positioned than many, but not with enough excess to avoid potential shared sacrifice. The medieval winter social contract at work. Those with more expected to support those with less, but within carefully defined limits. The afternoon brings another surprise. The visitors Agnes mentioned. 3 men from the neighbouring village arrive, looking exhausted from their dangerous journey. They're escorted directly to the church, where the steward waits with Father Edwin and village elders. No one from your social level will be included in whatever negotiations follow, but by evening, word spreads through the careful winter information network. The neighbouring village has suffered worse than yours. 2 houses collapsed under snow weight, their food storage damaged by subsequent moisture. They seek adjustment to spring planting boundaries, always a contentious issue between communities sharing limited arable land. Their weakness now might translate to your village's advantage in negotiations, a harsh reality of medieval resource politics. The day ends with Edric more settled in your household, the wood stores significantly replenished and the village buzzing with speculation about the steward's decisions. Tomorrow will bring the Lord himself, a rare winter appearance prompted by the unusual inter-village dispute. As first sleep approaches again, you find yourself explaining to Edric why medieval people split their night into segments. First sleep, then the watch, then second sleep, you tell him. It's how we've always done it. The boy nods solemnly, accepting this pattern as children do, adaptable to whatever environment they find themselves in. His resilience reminds you that medieval children weren't fragile creatures protected from reality, but active participants in the community's survival strategy. Outside, the winter stars wheel overhead, brilliant in the clear, cold air. Inside, your expanded household settles into sleep's familiar rhythm. The medieval winter continues its test of human endurance and ingenuity, a test your ancestors passed generation after generation, their success evidenced by your very existence centuries later. First sleep claims you as the fire burns low. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new calculations, new adaptations. But for now, rest. The watch will come soon enough. The villagers have a name for this time of year, the hunger moon. It's been 6 weeks since first frost. Outside your window, the landscape remains locked in winter's grip, but inside the hut, a more insidious enemy has taken hold. Hunger, not the sharp pain of complete starvation, but the constant hollow ache of never quite having enough. You wake from second sleep feeling it immediately. Your stomach cramps slightly, your body's protest against portions that grow smaller with each passing day. Beside you, young Edric stirs, his small frame curled tightly against the wall for warmth. He's been with your family for nearly 3 weeks now, slowly adapting to your household's rhythms. "Is it morning?" he whispers, his voice still carrying traces of sleep. Almost, you answer, though in truth, you're not sure. Winter days blend together now, differentiated only by the village's shared challenges. Your father is already up, carefully feeding the smallest possible amount of precious wood into the fire. Every household in the village has begun serious rationing of everything: food, fuel, even movement. Each calorie spent must yield survival value. The grain store inspection is today, your father says, without turning. This isn't news to anyone, but saying it aloud acknowledges its gravity. The communal grain store, a carefully constructed pit lined with clay and straw, is the village's last defense against starvation. Unlike individual household stores, which fluctuate based on family size and harvest success, the grain pit holds the emergency reserve. Opening it isn't done lightly. Will there be enough? Edric asks with childish directness. The adults exchange glances. Medieval children weren't sheltered from hard truths, but neither were they burdened unnecessarily with adult worries. Enough for what's needed, your mother answers, a diplomatic response that commits to nothing. Breakfast is thin gruel, mostly water with a carefully measured portion of precious oats. No honey now, no dried fruit. Those luxuries disappeared weeks ago. You eat slowly, making each bite last, teaching your body to be satisfied with less. Man, I cannot imagine the psychological toll of this slow-motion crisis. Every day watching your supplies dwindle, doing the mental math of, if we eat this much, we'll run out by this date. Modern folks freak out when their favourite cereal is out of stock. Medieval winter hunger was next-level psychological warfare. After eating, your family bundles up for the short walk to the village centre. Despite the bitter cold, most of the community is already gathering. This inspection is too important to miss. The mood is sombre, tense. You spot Martin, Edric's father, looking even thinner than when he brought his son to your home. He nods in acknowledgement but doesn't approach. That's not how this works. The boy will return to his family when winter eases. No explanations needed. Elder Harold stands beside the sealed entrance to the grain pit. Beside him, Father Edwin provides religious authority to the proceedings. This isn't just resource management, it's a sacred trust, the community's covenant with both God and future generations. We open the store today, Harold announces, his voice carrying across the gathered villagers, to assess what remains and plan accordingly. The pit is unsealed carefully, not just to preserve the contents, but because the physical structure itself must last for years. Medieval food storage technology represented generations of accumulated knowledge. The wrong moisture level, the wrong temperature, and an entire community could starve before spring. The village's two most trusted elders descend into the pit with torches. The wait seems eternal. Children fidget despite the cold. Adults maintain carefully neutral expressions, but tension shows in tightened jaws, crossed arms. When the elders emerge, their faces tell the story before words are spoken. The news isn't catastrophic, but neither is it good. We have grain for 20 more days at current ration, Harold announces, possibly 30 if we reduce further. A murmur passes through the crowd. Spring is still more than 40 days away. The math is simple and brutal, but medieval communities had contingency plans within contingency plans. Harold continues, today we begin supplementing with marsh flour. You've heard of this but never experienced it. Marsh flour, made from pounded and processed cattail roots, was emergency food, labour-intensive to prepare and less nutritious than grain, but it would extend the flour supply, stretching precious wheat and barley further towards spring. Second woodland gathering tomorrow, Harold adds, for early shoots and bark flour. This draws a stronger reaction. Bark flour, literally made from the inner bark of certain trees, was truly famine food. Its preparation was difficult, its nutrition minimal, its taste bitter. That it's being considered signals how precarious the situation has become. I want you to really grasp what's happening here. These people are methodically working their way down a list of increasingly desperate food options. They're not panicking. They've inherited this knowledge. Which plants can be eaten when nothing else is available? Which tree bark won't poison you? How to process these last resort foods to extract minimal nutrition. This isn't improvisation. It's a carefully preserved survival technology. As the meeting disperses, your father approaches Elder Harold. Your family has been assigned to the marsh flour processing team, a labour-intensive task that will consume the day. Medieval work assignments weren't optional, especially in crisis. The community's needs outweighed individual preferences. Bring the boy, Harold tells your father, nodding toward Edric, old enough to help, young enough to learn. This is how knowledge transfers in oral cultures, through direct participation, through watching and doing. Edric's inclusion isn't just about extra hands, it's about ensuring these survival skills continue into the next generation. The marsh lies a mile beyond the village, frozen now, but still accessible with effort. Your group breaks through ice to reach the cattail roots, harvesting them with focused efficiency. The cold makes the work brutal. Fingers grow numb despite mittens. Breath freezes in beards and on scarves. "I've done this 3 times in my life," says Willem, working beside you. "Twice as a boy during the Great Famine, once as a man 10 winters back." This casual comment reveals something profound. Willem is perhaps 40 years old, meaning the village faces this level of scarcity roughly once per decade. Survival knowledge needs regular reinforcement or it fades. These crisis periods, while dangerous, also serve to transfer and reinforce essential skills. The cattail roots are brought back to the village, where the real work begins. They must be cleaned, pounded, soaked and strained repeatedly to remove fibres and impurities. The resulting starchy paste is then dried near fires to create a powder that can extend the precious grain flour. Edric works alongside you, his small hands quickly mastering the repetitive motions of cleaning roots. Children in medieval villages weren't just miniature adults, but they were essential contributors to survival. By age 5, most could perform meaningful work.